Welcome to the Let's Play the Pricing Comparison Game webinar. Today we're going to take a look at the differences between GP standard pricing, extended pricing, Rockton Software's Omni Price, and Rockton Pricing Management, or RPM. So let's take a look at each pricing product, how they work, discuss the pros and cons of each so you can decide what pricing product will work best for you. So starting with GP standard pricing. GP standard pricing is your basic out-of-the-box pricing when you install GP. The GP standard pricing is mainly set up on the price list and tied to a price level, where you can use quantities, currencies, units of measure, and whatnot to drive the pricing. The price method you select here controls how prices are calculated. You have a few options to choose from, and once selected, that price method is used for all price levels assigned to the item. For example, this item is set to use percent markup of current cost, with this price level set to 25% markup for a price of $190.13. When you enter a transaction, the price level defaults onto the transaction and then uses the price list to get the price. The price level that defaults is based on your setup and where you want that price level to default from. So it can be the customer, the item, or receivables management setup. Typically, it comes from the customer. This allows you to create the pricing based on a group of customers if needed. So let's take a look at the pros and cons of GP standard pricing. The pros, it's already there in GP, so there's no add-on needed. It's easy to set up. It offers 6 different pricing methods so you can calculate pricing based on cost or the list price. You can have multiple price levels on the price list to calculate different percentages per price level. For example, you could have 3 different price levels on an item, diamond, gold, or bronze, with different pricing for each. Then assign the appropriate price level to the customer. When you enter a transaction, the price level will pull from the customer to get specific pricing based on the level you assigned. And pricing can be easy to maintain, depending on where your price is pulling. If you're calculating based on the cost of an item and your cost changes, the price is automatically calculated based on that, so there's no interaction needed from the user. Now for the cons. There's limited flexibility, so when it comes to pricing, it is the basic pricing. Customer-specific pricing can be difficult if you would need to maintain a price level per customer, which could be a lot of price levels. It can't determine pricing based on the date. It doesn't handle tiered pricing, where you may have different pricing for specific quantities of the same item on the same line. You can't add additional price calculations such as commissions, rebates, and other pricing adjustments. And there's no recalculate option should your pricing change and you want to update existing transactions. So GP standard pricing is just that, the standard price without any extra calculations or pricing based on the date. This is your best option if you use invoicing rather than sales order processing, and you don't need any special pricing, or if you truly have basic pricing for your items. So now let's take a look at extended pricing. Extended pricing is also part of Dynamics GP, however it is different than GP standard pricing, and allows for a little more flexibility in the pricing. You can use extended pricing or GP standard pricing, but not both at the same time. So with extended pricing, it's set up in GP, but in order to use it, you have to enable it, which essentially disables standard pricing. They're not tied together, so you'd use one or the other. Switching between standard pricing and extended pricing is not simple, so if you plan on using extended pricing, I recommend you test in a test company first, and then enable it in your live company. Extended pricing does offer more functionality than the standard pricing, the biggest feature being date-driven pricing. It uses price books and price sheets, so you can create a price sheet for your date range of pricing. So you could have your annual pricing, but then also have a summer sale. And the dates can overlap, because the date that's most defined is what will be used. So let's take a look at the price book, which is made up of price sheets. In this price book, there are 2 price sheets assigned. One that encompasses the entire year for pricing, and looking at this item, I can see the adjusted price. There's also a price sheet for summer months only, It may have the same items, or you may want to have specific items on the summer sale. I have the same items, but for a different price. So now let's use the price book and price sheets. When you enter a transaction for an item that is on a price sheet, the price sheet that most closely meets the criteria is used. So in this example, I'm using a date of April 15th, which falls outside of the dates on the summer price sheet. So the annual price sheet price is used when I enter the item. If I enter the same transaction with the same information, but use a summer date, the summer price sheet is used, even though it's the same item. Extended pricing also comes with a price trace inquiry window, where you can test the price for a customer item combination. So using the same examples as my transactions, I enter a date that falls outside of the summer dates and click Trace. I can see extended pricing finds the annual price. If I change the date and click Trace again, it uses the summer pricing. So let's take a look at the pros and cons of extended pricing. The pros: there's more flexibility in your pricing. There's date-driven pricing, including overlapping dates. It's easy to mass update pricing. It allows for quantity breaks, so you may sell items based on volume sales. It's easier to make customer specific because you can assign customers to price sheets or price books. And there's a price trace window where you can verify pricing. And for the cons, you must enable extended pricing, which means switching between standard and extended. Setup is a bit more difficult and time-consuming. It won't work with the invoicing module, sales order processing only. If there's a change to pricing, there's no recalculate option for existing transactions. There isn't an easy way to import and export pricing information. And it doesn't handle additional price adjustments like commissions and rebates or other fees. And it doesn't handle tiered pricing. So extended pricing does offer more when it comes to pricing in GP, and it may be a good option based on what you need to do, but we have a couple of other options for you that may better suit your needs. So let's take a look at Omni Price. Omni Price is an add-on product from Rockton software. It's similar to extended pricing, however it's built on top of GP standard pricing, and it may be used in place of or in addition to GP pricing. Plus it's really easy to set up. So everything you need to access for setup is right here from the Omni Price shortcut. And pricing is based on contracts, and you can create as many contracts as you need. You can assign filters based on customers, items, dates, as well as many other options in which to define your pricing. So for example, you could create a filter for the contract based on a salesperson or user-defined fields in sales order processing. You then create your pricing matrix and define items or item groups for the contract. Omni Price offers many pricing modes, so you can price your items and each line could have a different pricing mode. You can also leave the item and item group field blanked, but still assign pricing. So when it's blank, this means that any item not listed individually or in a group is priced based on the pricing mode for that line. Let's take a look at how contracts work when there's more than one. In this example, we have 3 contracts. One for pricing for everyone for the year, one for a summer sale for our gold level customers, and one for customers who have shipping method of pickup, because we offer a discount if you come and get your order. They all have the same items since 2 were duplicated based on the annual contract. You can have multiple active contracts and Omni Price will find the contract that best meets the criteria on the transaction. Or if you have contracts that have some information that is the same, you can set a priority on the contract, so Omni Price always knows what price to use. Using these contracts, let's enter some transactions. This first transaction, I've entered a customer who is in the gold customer filter, but used a date outside of the summer sale. We can see the contract used is the annual pricing contract, even though the customer is a gold level. And shipping method is ground. If I enter another transaction, this time within the summer dates, but the same information, the summer contract is used and they get the sale amount. But now if I change the shipping method to pickup, I'm asked to recalculate since a new contract was found. The recalculate option is helpful when you have made changes to your pricing and want to update the pricing on your transaction. You can recalculate a line, a transaction, or an entire batch. You can choose to leave the price or allow Omni Price to search pricing to see if a new price is found. Now the price is for picking up the item because the contract for the pickup shipping method is used. And much like extended pricing, Omni Price has a price check window where you can verify pricing for a customer. So if you enter the information you have, and the contracts that meet the criteria will display at the bottom of the window. So in this example, it only found one contract that meets the criteria. If I change the date, I see 2 contracts. A green check lets you know which contract will be used, and if I change the shipping method, the contract based on shipping method is added. This makes it easy to see what price a customer will be given on a transaction. Another big feature in Omni Price is the ability to import and export contract information. This makes it easy to export your contract information, change the pricing, and then import it back in. So let's go through the pros and cons for Omni Price. The pros: it's easy to set up. With the duplicate contract feature and the ability to import and export contract information, setup is a breeze. There's date-driven pricing. There's more pricing methods available. Easy mass updates for pricing, either using the utility or the import-export feature. You can create quantity breaks and assign a different pricing method to each break. You can assign a priority to a contract. There's a price check window to review pricing, and it can be used with invoicing or sales order processing. And also there's a recalculate option for transaction lines, transactions, and batches. And for the cons, it is an add-on product. It doesn't handle commissions, rebates, or other pricing calculations. It doesn't handle tiered pricing. And last but not least is Rockton Pricing Management, or RPM as we call it. RPM is a pricing engine web app that integrates with GP and other ERP systems. It's extremely flexible, which allows you to accomplish almost any pricing scenario you need to meet. When in the app, your ERP data is visible here, but still entered and managed through your ERP system. In RPM, you have so many different ways you can determine pricing. It can be based on attributes related to a customer, item, even a document. There are multiple ways to filter. Pricing is driven by price schedules, and those price schedules tie to your price levels in GP to drive the pricing on the transactions. You can use the GP standard price to drive the base price and then have RPM do any other calculations, but it's just as easy to set it up and forget it in RPM and let it do the work for you. There are multiple ways to set up your pricing on a price schedule. You can layer the price schedules to be built off one another, or you can base pricing on a price book where you can assign pricing based on dates. This makes it easy to set up pricing in advance. Plus, with RPM, you can set up volume or tiered pricing. But the biggest thing about RPM are the price calculations. These are additional calculations on the base price of an item. So you could have an item set at a specific price, but then you might add some price calculations for some fees that need to be included. You could have multiple fees on one transaction line, or a rebate, or maybe you want to calculate margins. With price calculations, they don't have to affect the base price, but they can. It's entirely up to you. You also can determine if these price calculations should post to separate GL accounts in GP. And like extended pricing and Omni Price, RPM has a get price option where you can test your pricing to see what price calculates. In this example, I can see the price calculated, but also that it has an additional price adjustment. This is the first price schedule RPM found that met the criteria entered. If I add in a specific price schedule and execute, the information changes. But not only is there a way to do a price check through Get Price, RPM also has a diagnostic tool to help you see where the price came from. From Get Price, I can click View Diagnostics to see the detail on how the price was found. You can also access the diagnostics under Tools. Here you see a summary of pricing calls made. Just click on the one you want to see to get the detail. So whenever a price is calculated from RPM, you'll get a diagnostic. If it looks wrong on a transaction, you can come here to see how it figured out the price. But let's take a look at how it works in GP. I entered a sales transaction, and when I enter the item, RPM calculates a price based on the price level entered here to the price schedule in RPM. You can also set it up so that RPM finds the best price schedule for the criteria on the transaction and then populates the price level. Now that I have my price, let's take a look at the price adjustments that are included. So when I enter a transaction in GP, RPM calculates the price, and if there are some price calculations added, I can see the price that calculated on my line, but then also look at those additional calculations. In this case, there are 4, since the price schedule used is also built on another price schedule. I can also see that some of them affected the unit price while others did not. Some adjust the price to increase it, and others decrease the amount. Also note, there's a View Diagnostics option here as well. And with RPM being a standalone product, I'm sure you're wondering how RPM and GP are tied together. This is done through a connector, and the connector piece is what's installed on GP and ties them together. So let's review the pros and cons of RPM. It's very flexible, so you can address those complex pricing situations. It's an add-on to GP, so there's no need to disable GP in order to use it. It allows for date-driven pricing. It's easy to mass update using the import-export feature. There's various pricing methods. You can test pricing scenarios using a Get Price window, and there's a pricing diagnostic window to provide detail on how the price was found. There's additional pricing calculations for fees, commissions, margins, and any others you need. You can post those adjustments to specific GL accounts. And there's quantity breaks for volume or tiered pricing. The cons: it's an add-on product. So to recap, we have GP standard pricing, where it's your basic pricing without any bells or whistles, and you assign pricing based on price levels and group your pricing that way. Extended pricing is still part of GP, but must be enabled and no longer uses price levels in GP, but rather price sheets are used to create price books within extended pricing to define the criteria. It offers a bit more flexibility around what you can use to define prices, mainly dates. Omni Price offers more flexibility, but also is built to work with GP standard pricing. This is helpful if you've been using standard pricing but want to move to Omni Price and still want to calculate based on some of the GP information. You can use them together or assign all pricing through contracts in Omni Price and use filters to further define it. RPM is a web app that can be used with GP and other ERP systems. It's a powerful and flexible pricing engine that allows so many different ways to determine prices, the biggest seller being the additional price calculations. With all of these products, there's even more pros and cons to each of them. I highlighted the main ones. If you're looking for a pricing product, look closely at each one of these. Get a demo, try playing with them in the test company or your test environment to really decide which one is best for you. Thank you so much for your time. Let me turn this back over to Amy.